All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. A few things we're gonna hit over here. One, just want to follow up a drop. I don't want to go get too carried away. I might have got too carried away earlier in the week, and that is we mentioned about this New York Times article, against the Hasidic community and the lack of, let's just say, the lack of their teaching, secular studies, and maybe, their English may not be so good, grammar might not be so good, maybe high mathematics, they're not going to know. But someone made a comment. I just want to address, the comment, because I don't think they listened to what I said, but just want to address the comment. And the comment was, what? You don't want Jews to be able to do math? Now, that's not what I said, right? What we said was higher mathematics. I don't know. Does it really matter? Does it really matter if someone knows higher mathematics, calculus? It's going to help them in life or something. Algebra I can understand. You'll tell me, okay, there's an algebraic equation. Figure out how many miles to the gallon, right? Or, liters to the kilometer, right? So that I showed, I showed when I was teaching math, I showed that that's a algebraic equation, right? How to figure it out. Not so, not rocket science, right? How to figure that out. So the comment was, what? I don't want Jews to be able to do math. Don't know how to do math. You need how to do more than basic math? Depends what you need it for. Most people do not need higher mathematics. They don't. They'll have an accountant figure out stuff for them. They'll have other people figure out stuff for them. They don't need higher mathematics. What do they need higher mathematics for? Right? If they're going into business, right? Okay. What's the most important thing they have to know? How much things cost, what they're going to cost in bulk, how much money you're going to save, and what's your profit, right? What's your profit margin? You don't need high mathematics for that, right? You don't need calculus for that. I don't think there's any question about that. You don't need calculus for that. So should they learn math? Yeah, they should. I didn't say they shouldn't learn math. That's not what I said, right? If you're going to quote what I said, quote it. If you're going to misquote it, okay, right? So my point was higher mathematics they don't need. Basic math they should get, right? They'll get basic math, and after a certain point, they're not going to learn math. Okay? They want to go to college, they want to go to university, so they have to take brush-up courses. That's what they'll have to do. We mentioned most things you don't need it. You don't need to go to college for. You don't need university. You want to prove to me you need university for what? You'll tell me medicine you need it. Okay? Law school, you need it. Okay? Certain things you need a degree. Fine. Most things you don't. And my point was, even with lack of knowledge and these other things, you got plenty of Hasidic people making good money without going to college. Right? You want to do computer graphics? I don't need a degree. You want to go into architecture? I don't need a degree. Many things you don't need a degree. And then, for goodness sakes, you go to a school and you go get a degree in liberal arts, you can't use it anyway. So no, that was not my point. My point was higher mathematics. You don't need basic math. Okay, so they learn basic math. They need more than that. They need more than basic math. They just got an axe to grind. I get it. They got an axe to grind. They should be more civilized. They should know high mathematics. They should read Chaucer. They should read James Joyce. Read this garbage that they put out. But they're called classics. Classics. Come on. Right? So, all right. I already had my fun with that. So that's my answer. Now, another thing that, someone here mentions, people get offended too easily. And not just about getting offended too easily, right? What's the point? What's the point over here? They're funneling tons of money to these yeshivas. Legally. Different programs, whatever it is. So they're funneling money. They're giving money. I get it. So we said, we say here in Israel, Bala Mea, Bala Dea. You got 100, you have 100, So what you say goes because you have money, right? So they say, listen, we're giving all this money and they can barely speak English. Or they're not doing higher mathematics. Or they're not reading, I don't know, not reading Chaucer, Hemingway, Dante's Inferno, Dostoevsky. Not reading all this good stuff, all this pure, wholesome stuff. No, but they got an axe to grind. You know why they have an axe to grind? Because they're putting a lot of money in. They're giving money to these schools. That's why they have an axe to grind. They're going to say, but the kids are coming out like that. Well, guess what? Go to most schools in New York City and see what the kids come out how they speak. You think they know proper grammar? You know, you think a lot of them have done higher mathematics? Again, you got good schools, you got bad schools. You know, so they're going to come out knowing whatever? No, probably not. But no, you're going to pick on us. You know, better to do, but pick on us. They don't even learn high mathematics. Yeah, halavai. Your public school should learn high mathematics. Halavai. Are they in the top 5 percentile in the world? No. America's down on the list. What are they? 15, 20, 25, 30. You know, when it comes to, scholastic text and math and in English, they're not up there, I'll tell you that. They're not in the top 5. They're not in the top 10 either. Right? So, but they got nothing better to pick on us. Now I get it. It makes perfect sense because they're funneling a lot of money. So if they're funneling a lot of money, they say, listen, we want you to do what we say. We want to add stuff to your curriculum. That's a problem. And we understand the Volozhin Yeshiva shut down because of that. 1 hour a week. They wanted to teach Russian language. Then the Tziv shut it down. Shut it down. It wasn't just about Russian language. What else are they going to put in there? What else are they going to claim that you have to learn? So we want unadulterated Torah. That's it. We'll teach a little bit of, maybe we'll teach a little bit of math, a little bit of science, but that's it. If the system works and it's not broken, you don't fix it. Right? So it's a big fight now. Right? But that was not my point. My point was high mathematics they don't need. That was my point. They'll get basic mathematics. And with basic mathematics, these people are making good money, even without higher mathematics. They're making very good money if they don't speak English so well. Would it be better if they spoke, better English? Okay. But they get by, doesn't matter. They never get by. Now, people probably make the same claim, about Hispanics, say the same thing. Hey, they don't speak English so well. Because it's a detriment to them. They can get better jobs, this, that, maybe. Maybe. But the Hasidic community, not a bunch of freeloaders. A lot of them are doing very well financially. Right? So you see, higher education doesn't matter. Anyway, that's what I want to say about that. Someone asked another question, interesting thing. And that is, I want to ask about Kabbalah. I've spoken about Kabbalah before, but whatever, this is a little bit of a different slant. Maybe not, but whatever. What was the question? Torah's every verses have different meanings of prophecy. I don't even understand the statement. Each verse in the Torah can be expounded as Rashi does. Rashi gives simple explanation. That's how Rashi explains things. Simple explanation. If Rashi cannot explain simple explanation, he'll quote a medrash. There are many Rashis in the Torah at the beginning, the book of Genesis, speaking about creation. The Rashi says, I can only explain it through a medrash. Why? Because simple explanation doesn't cut it. Simple explanation is not going to make any sense. Right? So the beginning of Genesis about creation is all Kabbalah. Right? 99.9% is all Kabbalah. Okay, so I'm trying to understand it at our level. Right? But, Rashi, par excellence, simple explanation. And he'll explain what the Torah says, simple explanation. Where he can't, he'll explain according to a medrash. Maybe he'll bring down the Talmud, other sources, etc. So the statement is true that every verse every verse you could look at a very deep level. There are many Rambans, Nachmanides on the Torah, very much steeped in Kabbalah. Right? The Rabbi Chaim also, right? He'll give simple explanation. He'll go according to the Medrash. He'll ask also according to Kabbalah. So the Torah you could look at, understand on a superficial level, simple explanation what's going on. But the problem is there's always a lot more going on. You look at a verse, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. 100%. So, explain, for example, Book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 8. What does the Torah say? God's going to dwell amongst the Jewish people. Right? You're going to put God in a box, so to speak. God says, I want to dwell amongst the Jewish people, and he wants to dwell amongst them in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle. Now, if God is infinite, I spoke about this last week, how could God, why would God turn himself into a man? Right? It's kind of hard to do that. Even for God, if he's omnipotent, he's everywhere at all times. If he's everywhere at all times, how can he put himself in a body? How can he, well, that's the question here. Exodus chapter 25, verse 8, how is he going to put himself in a box? How is he going to put himself in the tabernacle? It's also a question. Right? How is it answered? It's answered according to Kabbalah. Right? Kabbalah speak about this idea of simsum. Simsum means it's like God constricted, whatever that means. And he constricted himself to put himself in a box, however that works. But simple explanation doesn't make sense. Totally doesn't make sense. Right? So, yeah, there are things that make a lot more sense if you understand Kabbalah according to Kabbalistic explanation. Very true. Very true. But we have to look at it at face value, try and understand it at our level, but there are a lot of things going on, right? Many, many things going on, especially in the book of Genesis. Book of Genesis is almost impossible to understand in many ways, right? If we could ask many questions if the patriarchs and their kids kept the Torah before it was given, right? As the Talmud says, then there are a lot of questions. How could Jacob be married to two sisters? How could Tamar be with Yehuda? Forbidden for a daughter-in-law to be with a father-in-law. Or Moshe Rabbeinu's mother, right? She's an aunt to her husband, right? His husband's aunt. Not allowed to marry your aunt. So there are a lot of questions. A lot of questions. What's going on in the background. Well, that's why we get the commentaries to explain. Right? But there are many times the Ramban will explain certain things. Mention al pi sod. What does sod mean? Sod means a secret. What is the secret over here? It's Kabbalah. It's Kabbalah. So the Ramban was very much steeped in Kabbalah. So, you can look at the Ramban, you'll definitely get something out of it, but there's always layers. There's always many, many layers to the Torah. Sometimes it seems certain things have many more layers than others. Okay. So the question was, every verse is different meaning of prophecy. It's not prophecy per se. Right? There are definite prophecies in the Torah. Don't get me wrong. 100% there are different prophecies in the Torah. Right? You look at this week's Parsha. Parsha's Kisavo, all about the curses. All about curses going to happen in the future. And unfortunately, if you read through them a little bit, you'll see, unfortunately, these curses come through, right? They've come to fruition. They're pretty amazing. You say, wow, Moshe was really smart. He was really bright. And he was able to see the future. How was he able to see the future? Made a lot of predictions over here of what's going to happen. Imagine he makes such a prediction that Moses himself says, there's going to be a time in history the Jews are going to be suffering from, they're not going to have food. There's going to be destruction. They don't have food. And what's going to happen? Women are going to eat their children because they're starving. Now that is horrific, absolutely horrific. During the time of the Second Temple, that happened. That absolutely happened. A number of the liturgical poems, kinos, as we call them, that we say in the 9th of Av on Tisha B'Av, the fast of the 9th of Av speaks about this. How did Moshe Rabbeinu know? Oh, he got lucky. I don't know. It's prophecy over here. There's no luck by prophecy. It's God telling him, say this, give this over to the Jewish people. That's what happened. Right? That's exactly what happened. So, you look at some of these curses, just think a little bit into the curses. And think about a little bit about Jewish history. You see, they all came true. They all came true. So it's not that every verse is different meaning to prophecy. That's, I don't think what the person meant. I think what they meant was that the verses themselves can be very deep, and some of them can only be explained according to Kabbalah. Right? It's not a different meaning to prophecy. Prophecy is what it is. God spoke to Moshe, Moshe is the Jewish people. Right? So Moses is a prophet, Jeremiah is a prophet, Isaiah is a prophet. So I have to give over this message. Right? But the Torah's verse is very deep, that is true. And there's a simple explanation. There may be contradictions that have to be answered up. Sometimes we speak about that, in Sunday's 9 a.m.'s class on the book of Leviticus, that we see sometimes, right? But there could be multiple meanings. It could be very deep meanings, very deep, right? We look at things at face value. One thing I'll give a prelude, what I'm going to speak about later. Tanakh talk, I'm going to speak about sacrifices. Why JC can't be a human sacrifice. All right. But the root of the sacrifice, what is the word sacrifice? It's korban. That's the Hebrew. Right. What's the root of korban? Kuf resh beis. Karev, lekarev, to draw close. So now you have to ask, okay, if that's the word, and that's what the word means, how can a person, watch an animal be sacrificed, put on the altar, blood all over the place, and either their animal gets burned up with the burnt offering, or only parts of the animal go up, and this and that. So you'd have to ask, okay, if it means to draw close, and that's what it is, how is giving a sacrifice doing that? How is that doing that? How is seeing that? So I'm not going to answer now, right? Most people probably have heard my answer anyway. I'm going to speak about it later. So you see, there's, you take a look at the word. What does the word mean? Okay, what does it represent? Now, you can go very deep here. You could go, you can go midrashically, you can go kabbalistically. They may not be the same. Probably not the same. So yeah, the verses we can learn in many different ways. We can learn simple explanation. We can learn like Ibn Ezra does many times, according to grammar. We can learn esoteric things. Many esoteric things. Musar, we've seen many times from the Kliyakar, one of the great commentaries, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, bless the memory of the Rebbeinu Bachaye, etc. So there are many different levels. A person could learn this way. Does that mean every verse is prophecy? Well, it is, because God spoke to Moshe. Moshe gave it to us. Moshe is the father of all prophets, right? As the Rambam says in the 13 Principles of Faith. So if that's true, you're right. It is prophecy. Not a different meaning of prophecy. It's the prophecy God said to Moshe to pass down. Now the question is, what does it mean? Do we take it literally? You see these curses, you can say a woman eating her child. Well, maybe that's figurative. Maybe, that just means, at some point in history, Jews aren't going to have food. They'll be starving. Okay. Does that really mean women are going to eat their children? Well, brought down that way. Definitely brought down that way, as the Talmud says. They were starving. They had no food. So that I would agree, that if Moses is giving it over, then yeah, it's all prophecy. It's definitely all prophecy. prophecy does not mean it's Kabbalah. Kabbalah is a whole different thing. Right? The question is, what does prophecy mean? What does this prophecy, let's say better, what does this prophecy mean? What does it represent? Right? It's another issue. Right? But we're not talking the same thing. Prophecy is not Kabbalah. Moshe Rabbeinu's got to get it right. The prophets have to get it right. Otherwise, they can be liable for a death penalty. Yeah, but the verses are very convoluted, many of them. Especially in the book of Genesis. Can't explain it simple explanation. Right? You have to explain according to a medrash or according to Kabbalah. There are commentaries by great Hasidic rabbis. They look at verses and look at it totally, in a different way. This represents a human body. It's Musar. It's this. It's all kinds of things. Right? But I agree. I would agree. Every verse is prophetic. It has to be prophetic because Moshe Rabbeinu is giving it over. Moshe Rabbeinu is the father of all prophets. So, and what just one other thing is I always mention. I'll just mention it now. No non-Jew or Jew in training, Noahide, super Noahide, or simple Jew should be learning Kabbalah. Why not? Because if you don't know how to, you can't walk until you learn how to crawl. You can't run until you learn how to walk. Higher mathematics, calculus, you can't study if you don't have algebra or trigonometry. So you got to get the basics, and you got to get the basics very well. And you got to be holding somewhere in the spiritual world. You have to hold somewhere, spiritually speaking, to learn Kabbalah. But it doesn't matter. You have to learn a lot of Torah, a ton of Torah. A ton of Torah before you can even start looking at Kabbalah. Right? So it's just so funny that, plenty of people out there, especially, actors, actresses, you got Madonna learning Kabbalah. Come on, she can't read the alphabet. I promise you, she can't read the alphabet. Believe that. Right? She can't read the alphabet. She can't read the alphabet. You want to tell me she's learning Kabbalah? Come on. Can't. Right? If you don't know anything, Kabbalah sounds very esoteric. Sounds like, you're somewhere like up in the moon, and you hear some of these things. It is, it's true. I remember, before I had any of my books when I was in South America, so I spoke in someone's house. There were like 3-4 other families there. And we spoke about, it was right before Passover. So I spoke about, a number of things of Passover. I started in Spanish, then I spoke in Hebrew, I didn't spoke Hebrew, so I spoke in Hebrew, I spoke in English, back to Spanish. In the end, a lot of these people had to get interested in Judaism because Santiago, Chile, what's there? Kabbalah Center. So they all got interested in Judaism through Kabbalah. So I spoke, I'm sure people can't imagine, but, I spoke for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, there in between, they stopped to eat, whatever. So at the end, I said, I just want everyone to know, the depth of the Torah that I gave over at this point. I didn't mention one word of Kabbalah. I wanted to show the depth and how deep Torah is without Kabbalah. Now, can Kabbalah take a person to a different level? Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole different way of learning. A whole different way of looking at things. True? True. But if you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. And most people are not ready for it. And whatever Kabbalah people are getting today, it's all watered down anyway. Maybe some concepts here and there. You really think they're learning Kabbalah? Come on. There's a lot you have to know before you can digest it. Maybe if it gets so watered down, explain a concept like even someone with a pea brain can understand. Okay. It's not Kabbalah. Definitely not Kabbalah over here. But no one should touch it. Nobody. If you can't run before you learn how to walk or crawl. You got to start with the basics and know the basics well, very well. Kabbalah is a whole different thing, right? As we mentioned before. Someone asks, a lot of questions here. Someone asks, is Hashem more merciful and patient with Jews than with non-Jews? Well, let's say like this. A non-Jew has to keep the 7 Noahide laws. Now, some of the 7 Noahide laws that a non-Jew, if they transgress, they are liable for a death penalty. They don't need to be warned. If a Jew, we'll make it easy. If a Jew saw a non-Jew bow down to an idol, right? Technically speaking, they could take out a gun and shoot them. There wouldn't be a problem going to jail. You don't have to warn them. Their death is considered a warning. So there are a number of things that non-Jews are going to be liable for the death penalty. I don't have to warn them. Right? The question is God more merciful with Jews? Well, think about it. Non-Jews, there are a number of things that God does not, there's no warning over here. There's no warning. They get death penalty. Again, not for everything. But see, their obligation is to keep things that make logical sense according to the Torah. So now you tell me there are 60 of them, 60 commandments, 65, some say 70, whatever it is, the 7 are just an umbrella. They're an umbrella. But these things make sense logically. Now, if they make sense logically, God does not have to have mercy here. Why doesn't God have to have mercy? Because they make logical sense. And, a person's not going to get upstairs after 120 years. God's going to say to this Noahide today, how come you didn't keep the Noahide laws? Right? So this non-Jew is going to say, what are you talking about? Noahide laws? I never heard about it. I never learned about it. God's okay, let's take a look what you did. Oh, you stole over here. You didn't know stealing was forbidden? They're going to say, no, that's different. They weren't going to miss the money anyway. And they really needed it. And we were starving. And okay, they got 150 excuses why it's okay. It seems over here you cut off grandpa's pacemaker, and he died 2 hours later. No, that's not murder. That's not murder. That's mercy. What about hiding money from the IRS? Right? Not paying taxes or as much taxes. No, they take 30%. They take 25%. That's too much. That's not stealing. These things are obvious. God is not going to hit someone upside the head if it's not obvious. Right? For a Jew, it's a whole different thing. If the Jew, it's a whole different thing. It's true. If God chose us and we chose him, so God does have mercy. God's got a lot of mercy. Right? There's no question about it. I'm not going to say it's infinite because, you see, we get punished. Jewish people collectively, individuals. So mercy isn't forever. Right? Well, someone would say, is God more merciful and patient with Jews? Yes. But see, what non-Jews have to keep, is so obvious, in many ways that God does not have to have mercy over you. Right? You got all these Hindus, right? Got all these people, tens of thousands, millions of people who worship cows. Now, cows are not the brightest animals in the world. They're not. They say, when I was in college, people would say, or I was in university, people would say, you have to be plastered, you have to be drunk to do this, because I guess it's a lot more fun, right? And that is to go cow tipping. Why? Because cows normally sleep standing up. So what do? You push them over. I don't know how much fun that is. I guess it's a lot more fun when you're drunk. You push it over. I mean, it's a heavy animal, so you get a bunch of you. You push it over, and guess what? It can't get up. It's asleep. I don't know. That sounds so enjoyable. So, but someone told me, what about all these people? They're going to be liable for death penalties, idolatry. Wow, didn't God give people brains? Didn't God give people the brains to be able to understand that, worshiping a cow is probably not the best way to go? Or you can say by the Christians, you got tens of thousands, millions of Christians brainwashed at a very sophisticated level because you don't believe in JC, you're going to fry in hell forever. And that's why it takes so long for a person to get out of Christianity. Because, there's that fear tactic, but you got questions. You got a lot of questions over here. They don't have answers. So they tell you got to have faith. Got to have faith, right? You got to have faith over here. So what about them? So whoever's listening, get out of Christianity. or, get out of paganism, whatever. They got out of it. How? Because they questioned. So then God gave everyone a brain, gave everyone a brain. Did he give them the ability to understand things and ask questions and whatever? Yeah. So you can say, but so someone once told me this, but what about all these people? It's not their fault. They've been brainwashed. Okay. What about the tens of thousands of millions of people, been brainwashed, by communism? And how many people Stalin and all these people killed, during World War II? And all that, brainwashed, totally brainwashed. Okay. Totally brainwashed. So is it their fault? They're going to be liable after 120 years. Can't say that's onus. They could have figured out the truth if they wanted. 100% they could have figured it out. And some people have. Other people, Russians are tough not to crack. Them, many times you have to hit through intellect. Not going to be touchy-feely. You have to hit them through the intellect in many ways. But they've also been brainwashed. Communist China, they haven't been brainwashed. North Korea, they haven't been brainwashed. So totally been brainwashed. Doesn't mean they're not liable. It's sad. A lot of these people are going to get wiped off the face of the map. It's sad. It's true. Right? But if it's something so obvious, and they know our high laws are so obvious, why is God going to have mercy on them? Why should he have mercy on them? So we're God's chosen people. So obviously we're going to have a more special connection to God. But what's someone going to say? Someone's going to say that's true, and we're a lot closer. But look at history. Look at how many times Jews have been killed, murdered, gassed, butchered throughout history. So you got to say, where's the love? Good question. And what's the answer? Right? The answer we give is the fact that closer you are to the king, you can get burnt. There's a higher degree of responsibility, 100%. 100%. But at the same time, if we're really chosen by God and we're his people, so God's also going to cut us a lot of slack. He's going to have more mercy. Why would he have mercy when people don't keep his laws or don't care? Why would he? Right? I would think it'd be a heck of a lot worse that God shouldn't have mercy on non-Jews, or less mercy. Why? If they don't even keep what the minimal is for them to keep by the Noahide laws. Right? One of the things I spoke on Tanakh Talk, terrible things that the Talmud says against non-Jews. One of them is the non-Jews ox gores a Jew's ox, got to pay. He's got to pay full price. A Jew's ox who gores a non-Jew's ox causes damage, doesn't have to pay. Now in the end, the halacha is he will have to pay. Right? Jew's going to have to pay for a number of different reasons. But why does the Gemara say what it says? Why does it say, oh, what a terrible thing. What a terrible thing we say against non-Jews. So we're allowed to cause them damage. We don't have to pay. Why? Because we hate non-Jews? Because we're against non-Jews? What's the Gemara say? The Gemara says, you know what? The non-Jews did not abide by the laws that they were supposed to keep. They did not abide by the Noahide laws. So you know what God said? God said, you know what? We're going to take away their money. They're going to pay a price. They're going to pay a price over here. So if they damage our animal or cause us damage, they got to pay. That, technically, if we damage them, we don't have to pay, right? All right, why don't we have to pay? Why don't we have to pay? Because they didn't keep what they didn't live up to their end of the bargain. So their money is ownerless. But I can do whatever I want when I want. Their laws governing this is called Dina de Machusa Dina. It's a law of the land. You got to uphold the law of the land in many ways. Right, there's another issue we might get to. Right, but the law of the land you have to uphold. Right, to a good extent. But that being said, if they don't even do that, if they don't uphold their end of the bargain, meaning they're not holding by things that make rational sense. So the rabbis tell us their money becomes ownerless. Now people say it's unfair, they're making up their own laws. That's not the point. The point is they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So they get punished. It's a kanas, it's a fine. They get punished. Again, this law doesn't really apply because you're going to have to pay anyway for other reasons, right? But I want to point out that's the reason the Gemara gives. Now, it's not the only reason. Could be 150 reasons why, right? But that's one of them, right? That's the reason the Gemara gives, because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So if that's true, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and these laws are universal, right? Universal means everybody knows them. It makes perfect sense. We're not talking things that don't make sense. Even talking about things they would never figure out, that would be nice. That would be cruel, right? Because you're going to say, how could they be liable for this? They didn't know about it. Right? Give an example. A non-Jew and a Jew, for that matter, they're not allowed to take a peach and a plum, put them together, make a nectarine. Now, it's not forbidden to eat the nectarine, right? Even if a Jew or non-Jew did it, but it's forbidden to do. Now, a non-Jew could say, I didn't know that. How was I supposed to know that's one of the no-hide laws? Or you can't crossbreed animals, Jews or non-Jews, right? No, take a donkey and a horse and make a mule. Now, God allows it to happen, but what's the only problem with the mule? One problem with the mule, very strong animal. There's only one problem, it's sterile, can't reproduce. Well, that's so interesting. Wouldn't you say that might be a reason that you're not allowed to play with creation? Well, what God did over here made it sterile. You can't take a mule and replicate it. You can only take a donkey and a horse and put them together. Now, a non-Jew can make the claim, well, I didn't know about that. How was I supposed to know? Why should I get punished for that? Right? Now, what would be the simple answer? Why is that universal? Because who says you're allowed to play with creation? Who says you're allowed to crossbreed? Oh, but you're making a very strong animal. That's not the point. Doesn't matter if you're making a strong animal or not. Who says you're allowed to play with creation? Do you think non-Jews should know that? Right? So that's something, that's another issue. If it's something they would never figure out anyway, good. They're not going to be liable for that. But who says you have to play with creation? Someone asks, someone says, so no one's allowed to eat hybrids. No, I didn't say that. I said, if there's a hybrid, i.e. you take a peach and a plum, you make a nectarine, it's forbidden to do by a Jew or a non-Jew, but you're allowed to eat it. There are certain things that if they're done, it's forbidden to do, but I'm allowed to get benefit from it. Or I'm not allowed to get benefit from it. Give an example. Person, made a cheeseburger. Can't eat it, right? Can't cook a calf in its mother's milk. 3 prohibitions. 1 is you can't cook it even if you don't eat it. 2, you can't eat it. 3, you can't do business with it. Can't get benefit from it. So what do I give it to my dog? Can't do that. What do I give it to a non-Jew? Can't do that. That's giving benefit. Right? So certain things that are a hybrid, i.e. you take milk and meat separately, you can eat them. You put them together, makes it forbidden, doesn't make any sense, any logical sense. Right? But that is forbidden to get benefit from. There are certain things you're not allowed to get benefit from after the fact. Let's say for example, a Jew cooked for a sick person. Person was sick, they cooked for them on Shabbos. Forbidden to do. Totally forbidden to cook on Shabbos. They cook for a sick person. So if a sick person, they could eat it, but no one else allowed to eat it. Right? Could be no one's allowed to eat it, ever, or they're only not allowed to eat it till after Shabbos. Right? I don't remember. I think you're not allowed to eat it forever. No one's allowed to eat it. But in that case, you are allowed to eat it for the sake of a sick person. Right? So it depends what it is. Depends what it is. There's certain things forbidden to get benefit from, other things not. Right? So in this case, In this case, a person, Jew or non-Jew, put a peach and a plum together, made a nectarine. You can eat nectarines. Everyone says you can eat them. It's permissible, but not everything's permissible per se. Meaning the offshoot of whatever's done, sometimes it is permissible, sometimes not, depends on the case. Someone asked about the laws of lost objects, right? If you find a lost object, now it depends what it is. Does it have a sign on it? Does it have someone's name on it? Is the place a sign? What if you live in a place mostly of non-Jews? Right? Mostly of non-Jews, does that mean I don't have to put up a sign to say if anyone lost it? Right? Shouldn't you try to return money to a non-Jew if found? Yeah. It's called the midas chasidus. It's called, it's a good thing. It's a good thing if you do it. Do you have to return it to a non-Jew? No. Lost objects only apply to a Jew. Right? But if it's got a sign, either let's say there was an amount of money in a bag, right? In a pouch, whatever it was. And let's say it's $5,000, something like that. So that amount is a sign. It could be where it was placed is a sign. In other words, it was placed in a certain place. Whatever. So the question is it bad not to give it back if they were non-Jews? 100%. 100%. Usually we'd say you go after the majority. It's the majority of non-Jews. So who says I have to return it? I'd be exempt, most likely. Because it probably came from a non-Jew. It doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. We all say you have to return it anyway. Right? But again, how are you going to return it? Put up sign, around the area. And, and say if anyone, lost a sum of money, give signs, give a sign of, if you know what it is and how much it is, whatever, call this number. Something like that. Now they have to tell you how much it is and where it was. They have to give enough evidence because, there could be a lot of quacks out there also. Say, oh, it's a good thing you found my money. Yeah, how much was there? Was it in bills? Was it in coins? Where was it lost? Right? So you have to give them the ability to answer. Right? In other words, they have to come close to the answer. You can't just make up something. It's like, oh, you found a bunch of bills? They're going to try and figure out from what you're saying or not saying, right? But they have to tell you how much it is. Where was it lost? They have to give a sign, some sign. You can't just give it back. Either it's the location, right? Either it's location or it's the amount, right? Or, something else. There's a distinct sign. Someone says they've heard Hasidic stories, people find money, living with non-Jews, talking about Hashem gave it to them. Could be. Again, if there's no sign on it, I don't have to return it. I never don't have to return it. There's a story of somebody bought a desk many years ago, a number of years ago, right? This Orthodox Jew buys a desk. Inside the desk, there's an envelope. It's like $10,000 more in this envelope. Now, he could have, he could have said, it's mine. I found it in the desk. I bought it. I bought this desk. Someone must have left it there. Okay, so what? Finders keepers, it's mine. But he didn't do that. He put up a sign, he publicized it. The person says, yeah, I don't know, whatever the money was for, I forget what it was for. Whatever it was for. But it was a significant amount of money. So that's a huge Kiddush Hashem. That's a huge sanctification of God's name. No question. No question. It's an amazing story. Amazing story. Right? So you buy it. Now, why did he have to return it? He had an obligation to return it. Why? Because when he bought a desk, he didn't buy it with an envelope inside it. That wasn't part of the plan. Right? A person bought a house, and they were, I don't know, they were fixing up something, they found money behind the wall or something. Right? The whole question, did they buy the house, and everything the house is theirs no matter what? Or do we say that someone must have put it there? It doesn't belong to you. Right? So there are specific things. Again, without you're just generalizing here, there are specific cases where 100% belong to you. You don't have to You don't have to give signs on it, nothing. And there are other cases where we'd say not that way. Right? 100% we'd say not that way. That you wouldn't be allowed to. In this case, he bought the desk. He didn't buy it with $10,000 in the desk. Right? That was a huge Kiddush Hashem. Unbelievable Kiddush Hashem. Right? Let me see. There's some other questions here. 1 second. There we go. Someone asking, B'nai Noah, non-Jew, J-I-T, even, or a Jew mourn the Queen of England. I don't know. She's the head of the Anglican Church. Okay, so what? So if the Pope dies, should we say Kaddish for him? Unless he's a Jew. Should we say the morning's prayer for the Pope? Popecy? So yeah, it's a figurative thing. She's head of the Anglican Church. Is the Anglican Church idolatry? I'm not up to date on all the different types of Christianity that are out there. If it's idolatry, it's idolatry, right? She's the head of the Anglican Church. Who cares? Right? Did she save Jews? Was she good for the Jews? I don't think she was bad. Right? Definitely don't think she was bad for the Jews. Right? So it's one thing, you have a Karas Satov, you have what's the word? You have goodness towards them. Gratitude, that's the word. You recognize the good in them. That's literally what it means. But we define it as gratitude. It's one thing to have gratitude, okay? And if you have a political position, you have to pay respects. True. Mourning's a whole different thing, right? A Jew is not going to say the mourner's prayer for the Queen of England. That's not going to happen. Now, in England, in a lot of synagogues, they have a special prayer on Shabbos for the sake of the Queen. For the sake of the Queen. In some places in the States, they do it for the government. They say a prayer for the government in many places. Okay. Right? Now, mourning for such a person, that's a whole different thing. Paying respects, I understand. But I should do mourning customs for a non-Jew? There are no mourning customs for non-Jews. I mean, a person wanted to say Psalms for them, they could. You're not going to say the mourner's prayer, that's for sure. Right? But if a person wanted to do that, they could. Right? They definitely could. Mourning them, again, depends what you're doing. If you want to mourn them like a Jew and all that goes with it, no. That you're not allowed to do. Can you show gratitude? Yeah. Can you light a candle for them? You could. You want to say Psalms for them? You could. Right? No question. Certainly for a non-Jew should be okay. Right? Yeah, I would say like this. If they weren't good to the Jews or anti-Semites or whatever, you ain't doing nothing. Care if they're head of state or not. Right? That's just a contradiction in terms. Right? Yeah. Imagine the Jews of, the Jews of Russia had so many problems with, with Stalin. Imagine when Stalin died, a lot of them said Kaddish for him, said the mourner's prayer. I don't think so. Guy got, Stalin's going to get whatever he gets plus for all the evil that he did. Right? Someone who's evil, and there's no question about it. You're not going to mourn for them. You're not going to light a candle for them. Nothing. Person like that dies. You have a shot of whiskey. That's what you do. No mourning custom over here. Right? Okay, I'm not going to put the Queen in that category. Just, think she was good to the Jews. We're not going to say not. That's most likely the case. You're going to sit there and mourn? Now that's a bit much, right? Any head of state, she's just a figurehead. Any head of state, you're not going to mourn. Listen, if they were good to the Jews, you show respect. You show gratitude for what they did, okay? But there's a limit over here. Someone asking, the Noahites own or grow hybrid plants? No. Noahite's not allowed to. It's forbidden. The question was, if a Noahite had these plants, and now they made nectarines, okay, I'm allowed to eat them. They're allowed to eat them. But they're not allowed to have them. Not allowed to have them, not allowed to grow them. That's forbidden. Right? So having these type of plants, forbidden. What's the difference between Elohim and Ha-Elohim? I don't know, it depends what you're talking about. Elohim can mean God of judgment. Elohim can mean judges. Can also mean judges. Right? We know that there are 3 judges in a rabbinical court because where it's talking about judgment, in the Torah, it mentions the word Elohim 3 times. So Rashi and others learn out that mention 3 times to tell you need 3 judges. Right? So it depends where it is. It depends. I don't know. You have to show me what the context is. Sometimes there's no difference. Right? Sometimes it's emphasis. I don't know. You have to quote me what do you call it? Chapter and verse. Chapter and verse, what the difference would be. Because there is significance. There is definitely significance. The way it's translated doesn't matter. The question is, what's it doing there? Because you don't need it. Really, if you're going to say God, you're going to translate the God of justice. You don't need the hey there. Why did it say the gods? I don't know. So so you have to quote me different verses. You have to see it in the context why. That's where you have to, I don't know. I can't say offhand. Right? It depends what it is. Somebody asks, does God look different at non-Jews who want to convert? Even though they're not obligated to convert. So they have to look at it differently. Why? They looked at it differently because let's say they have the ability to convert. They want to go in the right path. This is what they want to do. And let's say for whatever reason they don't. So it could be if they're able to convert and they don't, not under onus, not something that happens, it's out of their control. If it's something they could control and they don't convert, the punishment is very severe. Very severe. If they want to convert, right, everyone has an evil inclination. See, for a non-Jew, before conversion, it's a lot easier. I mentioned this before. It's a lot easier. Right? Because you don't have an obligation to pray. You don't have an obligation to keep kosher, keep Shabbos, any of these things. There is a certain evil inclination for this. But at the same time, once a Jew converts, then it's for real. Then it's all about, for a guy, he's got to pray 3 times a day, right? His day is going to revolve around going to synagogue, and work, right? It's going to revolve around both. Revolve around both. So then he's got to be a lot more careful what he does. I'm not saying the non-Jew doesn't either, but it's all practice right now. And even for things that they wouldn't be liable for as a Jew, or even as a non-Jew, there are things non-Jews shouldn't even do because, as Coffman would say, it's a moral imperative. They're just things you shouldn't do, even if it's not forbidden, right? It just might be a moral issue. So non-Jews will have a higher awareness, and most people are going to be in this category. If they have a higher awareness of what their obligation is, and that they want to convert and whatever, God does not make their life easy. If you take my classes, it makes it even more difficult. Why? I don't know, but it does. People have all kinds of issues. They start my class, all kinds of things happen, right? Someone told me once, I started my classes, first week washing machine went, second week, I don't know, something went with the fridge, right? 2 weeks later, things with the car. So he called me up frantically. He says, normally happen? People take your classes? So I said, by you, it happened a little bit earlier, right? But non-Jews have all kinds of problems. Family can be a huge problem we've spoken about, right? Society they live in can be a huge problem. A lot of issues, right? I don't mean to say that there's no evil inclination before conversion. There is. There's definitely an evil inclination before. But see, now when you have real obligation to keep Torah and mitzvahs, and now you're going to be judged on every thought and everything else. Once you convert, it's a lot more serious. But now it's a lot easier. You want to pray, you don't want to pray. It's too hard. It's not too, okay, you can cut yourself slack. A lot of slack. But once you cross over, so to speak, that's for real. Right? So I would say the evil inclination is a lot stronger after conversion. I'm not saying you don't have an evil inclination. Now, people have told me, plenty of evil inclinations that they're trying to fight against. Trying to go on this path. It's hard. Right? But I'm telling you, if you don't have obligations now, or minimal obligations, whatever they may be, think about what it's going to be afterwards. You got a headache, whatever. So, deal with your headache, you got to go pray. Right? If you're lying down, you can't get up, you got a migraine, okay? It's a different issue. Shabbos, not negotiable. Festivals, not negotiable. Right? These are things, okay? Today's it's a different ball game. What a person wants to keep and how much they want to keep. Once it's for real, it's a whole different world. But yeah, they are treated different because they have a higher awareness. And anybody who has a higher awareness of God and they're going in the right direction, what do we say before? The closer you are to the king, or you want to be to the king, the punishments could be catastrophic because you're closer to the king. Listen, if the most important thing, most important question people are going to ask, ketchup, mustard, relish on my hot dog, right? Forget about mayo and forget about hummus, right? Maybe put French fries on it, sauerkraut, whatever, right? If that's the most important question some people are going to ask, God is not going to worry about them. Whatever they do, God will take care of them, no problem. But he's not worried about them. They're not holding it anywhere in the world. They might do things that are terrible. God will deal with it, right? But in the bigger scheme of things, not holding anywhere in the world. So God's going to look at them totally different in many ways. But someone who's got a higher awareness, Jew or non-Jew, yeah, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. They got to be a lot more careful. Even if you're not obligated to convert. Right? God knows the thoughts of man. He knows what's inside of us. He knows what we're capable of in a good way. God forbid in a bad way. So even by non-Jew, no free lunch over here. If a non-Jew could be better and they don't, they can also get severely punished. 100% they could get severely punished. Can I identify what a ger is? Depends. Depends on the context. A ger can be either what the Torah says is a proselyte, a convert to Judaism, or a ger can be what we call a ger toshav. Ger toshav is someone who lives amongst the Jewish people, keeps the no-hide laws, doesn't do idolatry. Jews have to sustain them and help them and all that. But, they're allowed to eat non-kosher and all these other things. So it depends on the context. Right? A lot of times when the Torah says ger, it means a convert. Definitely means a convert. I'm not going to say all the time because there's this idea of a ger toshav. There is no ger toshav today because we don't have a Jubilee year. It's connected to the Jubilee year. We don't have a Jubilee year. But if there would be a ger toshav, then they would have to go to a rabbinical court and take on this status. A non-Jew stays a no-hide, doesn't want to convert, can convert. Now, some will say they should go to a rabbinical court and take on the no-hide laws. And they'll give them a certificate, whatever. So, is it good to declare they're going to keep the no-hide laws in front of a witness? Yes. Is it an obligation to go in front of a rabbinical court and take on the no-hide laws? No. There's no obligation. Now, I understand why people would do it. I definitely understand why. Or make them feel good, make them more proud, take it more seriously. Okay. But don't let anybody tell you that there's an obligation to do it. There isn't. So the piece of paper makes people feel good. Okay. If that's what they want to do, okay, that's their choice. 100%, that's their choice. Are they obligated to do it? No. Is it good to declare they're taking on the Noahide laws in front of witnesses? Yes. It's a good thing. Are they obligated? No. Who's the only person obligated to go in front of a rabbinical court? Ager Toshav. Right? Ager Toshav is only one obligated. We don't have Ger Toshav today. We don't have a Jubilee year. It's connected. I don't want to go into the whole thing, right? But it's connected to the Jubilee year. Because we don't have a Jubilee year, there's no Ger Toshav. Finished. So anyone who tells you you got an obligation to go in front of a rabbinical court for the Noahide laws, they're lying. It's not true. Definitely not true. You want to do it? Okay. You're allowed to do it. 100%. You want to do it in front of witnesses, not in front of a rabbinical court also. Person wants to have their certificate, they did it formally, okay. In the bigger scheme of things, does that really matter? It doesn't. It doesn't, but it makes people feel good. Okay. I'm not going to hammer the point. They want to do it. It's good. They don't have an obligation. Someone asked if your path is more difficult, that means Hashem expects a lot more. Yeah. Heck of a lot. In other words, if we're not having difficulty in this world, it's like God said, I don't care about you. Now you're going to say, but life doesn't have to be so difficult. True. We're not going to be masochists over here. True. But a person can go through a lot of things and struggle in many different ways. Many different ways. So God says, I'm looking out for you, but, I'm holding you to a higher standard. 100%. He expects more. 100% he expects more. Right? Why do you think God gives the Reformed conservative movement tens of billions of dollars? Why? Because he doesn't want to hear from them. He doesn't want them to pray, nothing. He says, you want to raise money? Great. I'm going to give you all this money. Why is it by Orthodox Jews? So I got to put dimes together. You got to go all over the world, to put pennies together to keep institutions going. And all those institutions are in in the red. They're in the red. Why? That's what God wants. He wants people to go strengthen these communities. People are going to help them physically. You're going to help them spiritually. But if God didn't care, he'd give you everything. Here's $1 million. Don't bother me. Here's this. Don't bother me. They don't want it. God wouldn't want your prayers. Why would he want your prayers? He's giving you everything financially. Doesn't mean everything goes so smooth, right? But you need God. People in dire straits, they need God. I don't need God. Everything's good. Why do I need God? No atheists in a foxhole, right? Why do I need God? I love it when people say, people will tell me, well, so-and-so sick, say a prayer for them. And I'm dying to do this, but, I'll tell you what their answer would be. What would my question be? You really believe in God? You think my prayer helps? That's what I would say. That's being obnoxious. But that's what I would say. You pray to God? You really believe? Well, I don't believe in God like you. That's where the conversation's going to go. And that's where it's going to end. Right? Oh, I don't believe like you do, but say prayer anyway. No atheist in a foxhole. What does that mean? It means when a person's down, when they're down, what do? They'll say, God, if you're out there, I may not be the best person, but save me over here. Yeah, because no one is a real atheist. Nobody. A real atheist would say, I don't even believe in him. Whatever's going to be, it's going to be. If it's meant to be, this is it. It's finished. Right? But you got plenty of people will say, well, pray for them. Say a prayer for them. You really want me to pray? What does my prayer mean to you? That's how I would start off the conversation, but it's not going to go anywhere. They're going to say, what do you care? Just say a prayer for them. But you don't believe in it. You don't live it. You do all these, you do all these wrong things. Why would you think my prayer matters? Now, that's the spark of a Jew. That'll say, well, I may not keep it, but, doesn't mean I don't believe in God per se. I just don't believe in your God or what you do or whatever. Okay. Right? I haven't done it yet. Maybe one day I'll do it. I will, but that's going to be the answer. That's what someone's going to say. Yeah, let me see. Any other questions? Don't ever mention they met someone who had no height certificate and proud of it. Okay. I got in trouble for saying that it's not worth anything. I'm not going to say it's not worth anything, right? If people want to do it, it makes them feel good. Okay. I'm not going to argue. I get enough hate mail as it is, right? I'm not going to argue the point, right? I got hammered for saying that, but the reality is it's not worth the paper it's written on. That's the reality. Okay, so a person has it, makes them feel good. Okay. If they want to do it, okay. I'm talking about in the bigger scheme of things. It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it makes people feel good. So if they want to do it, fine. Are they obligated to? No. Should they do it? They want to do it, let them do it. They want to do it in front of a witness or two. They want to make this declaration, not in front of a rabbinical court. Okay. They can do that also. Are they obligated to do any of this? No, they're not. Unless it's a person who's a ger toshav, which we don't have today. But okay. I'm not gonna belittle the point. People want to do it, they can do it. They would ask me, should they do it? No, they shouldn't do it. I don't think they should do it. If they say, listen, I want to put it up, I'm going to take it more seriously, I want to make the declaration, okay. I'm not going to stop people, right? But okay, that's their choice. Makes them feel good, fine. So someone say, well, you shouldn't discourage people. I call it the way I see it. People want to do it, let them do it. Is it worth anything in the bigger scheme of things? If it makes them happy, makes them feel they took on this obligation, makes them feel strong, okay. They have to do it now. If it's something psychological, do it. I'm not going to say not. Not going to say not. I got in trouble for saying that. But I think it's true. I 100% think it's true. And I hammered somebody on this point because they quoted something in a video that was not true. Because what they were reading from the Rambam about a Noahide taking this on and going in front of a rabbinical court was the fact that the Rambam says by ger toshav. You can see it right in the Hebrew. Right in the text itself, on the video. So I got hammered over here. The person said you can't say that, you can't discourage people. It's, you can't say it's worth, it's tissue paper, it's toilet paper, this and that. And I said, yeah. And you also can't quote something that's not true. I said, you can't quote the Rambam and say what it doesn't say. I said, because I can read the Hebrew. I said, I'll expose that because it's not true. I said, yeah. No. Don't tell me, yeah. Go out, make a video and say, I'm sorry, I misquoted what the Rambam said. You don't have to mention my name, doesn't matter. I don't need the accolades over here. I got big enough shoulders. I can also read the Rambam. But you're going to hammer me and say it's worth, it's worth toilet paper, it's worth tissue paper. Read the Rambam. Quote the Rambam and say what he says, not what you say it says. One of my personal pet peeves. You're going to be honest, be honest. You're going to mislead people, admit you're misleading people. So Coffman will come out and I'll expose you now. Right? Got Rabbi Yaron will do that. Rabbi Mizrahi will do that. Coffman will also do it at times when I feel it's necessary. But you're not gonna hammer me and then misquote something and say what it doesn't say to prove that I'm wrong. Right? That's kind of silly. Right? Either admit you're wrong or back off. Yeah. Any other questions? Someone says, I'll give you Job 2, verse 10. Talk is no one is greater than one talk. Shall we also accept the good from God, not accept the evil? All right, I'll have to look it up. I'll have to look it up and see why. What about genetically modified foods? If they're kosher, it's not a problem. Right? Or let's say better, if they're not kosher, it doesn't matter. Question is, what about for Jews? Say what my rabbi told me many years ago. And that is, they put a in soybean. Soy is like 70% of all foods have soy in it. Right? So what do? They put a protein in the soybean in order to have it grow quicker. Right? What was put in the soybean? So what was the protein? They took from a rat. They took from a rat and put it in. That's what they did. They put from a rat. So now, put it in from a rat. What did it do? So now I got a problem. If they put it from a rat, what are they saying? That the rat is giving it protein, right? It's making it grow quicker. But the rat, they're saying, is the main element, and the main element in the bean, in the soybean. Now, if that's true, it's called a mimid. So in Kashrus lexicon, it says by a mimid, it's never nullified. Never. You can put 1,000 against it, 1,000,000 against it. It's never nullified. If it's never nullified, then how can you eat almost anything in the world? Cakes, cereal, all kinds of things you can't eat. Can't eat. Right? So if that's true, I ought to eat anything. So there's another axiom of kashrus, and that is Evizegorim. I have two things coming together at the same time. So there are two opinions. Two opinions on that. One opinion is Zev is Aser, Zev is Mutter. One opinion is it's forbidden. You put two things together, one's causing the other thing to do something. They say it's forbidden. One opinion says forbidden, the other opinion says it's permissible. Right? If that's true, then I have a problem. Right? I have a problem. If I say it's forbidden, then I can't eat anything. Because 90% of all soya things, 90% of soy is in everything. 70%, sorry. So you won't be able to eat very many things. You won't be able to eat almost anything. Right? Unless you come on to this principle. Unless you come on to that principle. So, it's like an issue over here. In the end, we hold it's permissible, so it doesn't matter. Right? Point is, it doesn't matter. Right? We hold it's permissible. The question is, why should it be? Right? So for a non-Jew, it doesn't matter. Non-Jews can eat anything they want. Doesn't affect them in a negative way. Even if genetically modified, they can eat anything that's not kosher. It doesn't affect them like it does a Jew. So for a Jew, the only question is going to be, is it kosher or not? If it's genetically modified. If it's kosher, I can eat it. Right? If it's not kosher, I can't eat it. Someone asks, person converts, gets a new soul. What happens to the old sins? Well, when a person converts, they're like a newborn baby. What does it mean? Their sins go out the window. Totally out the window. Because it's like total repentance. Even if they're liable for death penalty, seemingly, seems like all their sins get wiped out. Just like a person gets married. Same thing. Person gets married, it's like Yom Kippur for them. Their sins get wiped out also. Whatever they did gets wiped out. So their sins get wiped out. Now the question is, they have another addition to the soul, whatever that means. Right? So now they have a Jewish soul. So now it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. They're going to get judged by their old sins? No. Their old sins get wiped out. Any other questions? All right, no other questions. I'm going to sign out just every Tuesday and Thursday. 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, feel free. Find me on Facebook at Rabbi Chaim Coffman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. Send me an email, Rabbi Chaim Coffman at gmail.com or IBBICHIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. Still think I'm on tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time for Tanakh Talk Controversial Issues. I'm going to speak about sacrifice. I think that's the topic. Otherwise, I'm going to sign out. Wishing everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, or end of the day, depending